Well, here we are, a few weeks later. Um, this has taken a back seat, partly for reason of waiting for another tremolo or a new tremolo, but also because I had COVID and yeah, I was sick for a couple of weeks. So now I'm back on form. Well, slowly getting there. So we're ready to progress this rally, the dirt bag rally, into a better position. So simple things. I've set it up right now with the new bridge on, got a nut, adjustable nut set up and ready, put the tuners back on, and some sacrificial strings because now it's time to do the fret leveling. You'll see that I've already done the cavity shielding and grounding, so we're all ready to put new pickups in, three-way switch and wiring through there once we've done this that thing that's called fret leveling. Anyway, so I'm going to put you down somewhere here. It's not the best, excitingest view in the world for fret leveling, but there we are. So the first fret action is set, last fret action is set, neck relief is set, and I just want to give this a very careful and gentle leveling. It hasn't been done obviously before, so probably won't need much. That's fingers crossed. It was just a really dirty guitar and actually generally not in bad condition. So oh, there's my microphone. I don't know if it's even picking anything up. Go like that. Okay, so I'm going to now calibrate the truss rod and curve it enough to match the curve of the neck, which will be there, and then off we go. So it's towards the end of July. It's like, where did the time go? Well, the time went in COVID-19 for starters. My stepson went to see the Chili Peppers in London, and I'm pretty sure that he brought back the good bugs with him. So within a few days of that, we were, wow, there's some high and low patches on here. Within a few days, we were starting to get the symptoms, and the rest is COVID history. Went on for about, well, I suppose it's hard to say how long we were infected, but there's a little groove in there which needs, it's taken a ding in the past, so we need to get that out. Yeah, so you know, it's hard to know how long we actually had it for. All I can say is that you know, the feeling of it was like when I had the vaccination. It made me feel extremely ill and hungover and dehydrated and achy and so on and so forth. And COVID was like having that for longer. So it's like the vaccine, only longer, drawn out. So it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't deadly, the end of the world kind of deadly. But I don't want it again, and the chances are, of course, we're all going to get it several times, because the immunity that getting the bug gives you is actually reducing by the looks of it. We've got a low spot here, but I've set this incredibly low, so I think I'd better just hike this up just a tiny bit to be realistic. Yeah, so it was. I think it was uncomfortable. First thing I noticed was a sore throat, I think, and a general achy, hungover feel, and then it progressed and it went down onto my lungs a bit, and I never ever get coughs and I did. It's kind of deep down in my chest, which, you know, since I gave up smoking 20 years ago or something. Have really, well, I haven't had a cough. I don't have coughs, so it was unusual for me. And yeah, after all of that, a good week or two to get shot of it, and you know, don't really feel that great yet. So you know, I think the fact that it drains you, or can drain you, is one of the hardest parts of it. So I'm trying to sort of work my way back into the evenings workloads. It's probably not so bad. It's good being your own boss, and you can sort of set your limits, and when you feel a bit washed out, you can stop. Obviously, it doesn't pay the rent very well that way, but it's still nicer than having to drag yourself into work when you really don't feel like it. So we had, on this guitar, a bit of heavy work on these top frets here. Unfortunately, they're not in great shape, but we've freed them up. That's okay. Moving inwards, so it was the high E was the E track was the first problem. Maybe just slightly uneven on the fret ends, which is quite common. So now I'm going to calibrate for the G track, which is the all-important one. The G track is important because it very often is the one that prevents large bends happening on the high E string. Now the neck on these rallies are 16-inch radius generally, from the factory, unless you re-radius them like I sometimes do. But so it's a forgiving neck as far as radius is concerned, and it usually allows you to get those big bends pretty effectively. But at this point now, I want to make sure that the high E bends can work without any choking. So these are a set of test 9s. Good. That's itchy. Tiny bit of frizzle at the top end there. A little bit more. Yeah, so that's where July seems to have gone. But it's good to be on the other side of it, but a little bit of a shame to, you know, when I sort of find out that you know, you're not really going to get any immunity out of catching COVID, and a lot of people who I've spoken to have had it more than once in fairly quick order, so I guess we just have to get used to it. But I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever caught, and you know, I've had it's a bad cold, a very bad cold, as for, you know, leaves me worn out and feeling kind of miserable. But I've had worse, you know, I've had pneumonia in the past, and that was, I felt I wanted to die when I had that, and it wasn't the same with this COVID. So, but you know, it keeps changing, and I guess, you know, the next time I'll get a different version of it, or I may do. But then on the other hand, I look at it sort of from a glass half full perspective, and if I'm around and the world hasn't burnt itself to a crisp or gone up in a third world war by the time I catch COVID again, then I can consider myself lucky, I suppose. Because we are in uncharted times, really, aren't we? Yeah, so I think we're getting to a place now that almost everybody's had it. I don't think there's that many people left who won't very soon. Anyway, so yeah, kind of what was interesting for me is that when I got the COVID, it happened at a time, or as I got it, things seemed to quieten down for a couple of weeks in guitar work, which was just sort of quite miraculously, coincidentally useful. I didn't have to worry about getting behind on anything because it just went a little quiet for a while. And you know, part of me does that thing of worrying and going, oh no, I don't know when the next guitar is coming in because I've finished this and that and the other. And yeah, so I sort of felt so unwell that it was good practice to just say, look, you just got to relax and don't think about work. You know, you just got to put that aside for now. And I'm, you know, like many of you, I'm sure I don't find that easy to do, but I did, and I think it was, you know, like the universe, as they say, seemed to collude very well with me. Gave me time to take it easy, swing in the hammock, and you know, as I came out the other side, the work came back again a bit. So just amazing how that works. But anyway, so here we are. Got one guitar came in today. I've got 3 rallies in the workshop right now for David. This one on the wall there, and one in the refinishing, hanging up, having been resprayed. So there's 3 of those, and one at home, that's done. So a few of those, and then there's one come in today, which was an Ibanez Geo, which I'll be doing tomorrow or Saturday, probably. And then there's a couple more, 2 or 3 more coming as well in the next week. So it's yeah, just picked up nicely to bring back some work, just as I needed it. I was listening to an interesting thing going on a YouTube video yesterday about monetization and about YouTube's rules. Now, this is very flat at the moment. It's okay though, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to just recheck the calibration and do a bit more. Yeah, so there's a guy I follow called Jake Bro, and he's an investment American guy. He used to be in the American forces, so he's a sort of an ex-military now in financial investment. And I didn't follow him for that. I followed him because he started putting out a sort of report or commentary on Ukrainian news of the Russian invasion, and I just, you know, it's one of those things. I heard his approach and I liked his approach, so I carried on subscribing and so on. Anyway, but he kind of was talking yesterday about a problem he'd had with YouTube. They'd kind of disagreed with him on how he had rated his content. So I guess he'd rated it as no controversial issues, blah blah blah, because you get to rate that yourself until they disagree. So he got a thing saying manual review has suggested that your thing doesn't quite meet the requirements, or it contains some unsuitable material. I.e. may upset our advertisers, may make them feel nervous. Which I'm not even at 1.5, am I? Come on, Samuel. You're trying too hard. Yeah, so he was talking about they'd sent him a message saying that his site or his video had been manually reviewed, and they had, what did they say? They had limited its monetization, blah blah. Anyway, so he was kind of got into a whole thing about that, and he was asking subscribers. He took out 10 seconds that YouTube didn't like, and the 8 to 10 seconds they didn't like was a mobile phone piece of footage of what I think was a Russian jet falling out of the sky through the clouds in a kind of fireball, and it was night time, and it looked fairly spectacular and awesome, as in terrible, you know. But anyway, it was no more or far less than many channels show, and you know. But of course, YouTube kind of has a view that is sensitive subjects, you know, war, death, bad things being talked about, and so it put a kind of limit on the monetization, and it sort of raised an interesting thing, because Jake asked, he took out the clips from his video, and not only did it limit his monetization, but it also completely strangled the reach. So it sort of goes to prove the thing that's kind of obvious if you think about the YouTube revenue model, and that is, if your video falls outside of what YouTube thinks is suitable for its advertisers, it not only will stop your stuff coming up, well, sorry, it'll not only cut back your revenue, it will also stop. It'll what's the word? It will make the algorithm will read your content as irrelevant and won't return it anywhere near as high in the searches. So you'll suddenly become not seen or not recommended, and so on and so forth. So you sort of slip into a bit of invisibility. So you know, for his channel, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty big deal. So he asked, could people go back and rewatch in its entirety this new video with the bit taken out? What's that? I can't read backwards. So okay, you know, that was reasonable. I can understand what he was trying to do, get it back into you know, relevance and being picked up by the search engines. But actually, it made me think of the whole thing about monetization in YouTube, and it's actually an unwinnable or a hopeless kind of thing, because, and I'm actually very glad that when I started doing what I do, I was very clear-headed and realistic in that I made a rule for myself, and that was, I was never going to depend on YouTube revenue, ad revenue. I have to be specific. I was never going to depend on YouTube ad revenue, because I knew that you don't have freedom of expression within a safe environment, that YouTube has a greater commitment to providing anodyne, palatable content, unscary, unthreatening content for its advertisers. That's its first priority, and to provide you with a platform to say anything you want to say is complete. It's not even secondary. It's so far out of the sort of priorities. It's a byproduct. It's almost irrelevant. And I've always been aware of that, thankfully, from the outset. And I've always been worried for people who, you know, some of these guys doing great reports on the Ukrainian stuff, and you can see how I've got to be sort of realistic in this. They are both doing it because they're interested and they want to talk about what's going on, and they're doing it because they realise that they've got a good angle on it, and it will also make them money. And so they kind of go flying into this thing full on, and you know, in the case of Jake or another guy, another couple of guys, they've got very big very quickly, you know, and are sort of the top 3 people putting out regular updates in that format, or 4 or 5 in total that I know of. You know. Anyway, and they've all got lots of followers and lots of money coming in through ad revenue. But one of them is a pilot who lives in Ukraine, and he is out of work because there's no commercial flying. So he sort of turned his flying blog into talking about the war blog, and but as such he's going to find himself, his ad revenue is going to be curtailed, and he obviously he's smart enough and has a Patreon and that kind of support thing going on, but a couple of these guys sound to me like they are really dependent on YouTube revenue, and it's YouTube ad revenue, and it is dangerously, you know, it suckers you in. I can't imagine what it's like to have I don't know, $25,000 a month or whatever some of these guys do just you know, for having 300,000 subscribers or whatever it is they have. Anyway, you know, but they're making some a fair lot of money, but the problem is it's so seductive, and in the case of someone like Dennis, who has no choice, no real option, that, you know, it's become his only source of revenue. So it's like he's become very dependent on it, and then you're caught in this trap, because the minute that I don't want to drink this, by the way. I actually, I'll tell you a little story. Let me finish. The minute you become dependent on that revenue, the minute you suddenly are, it becomes impossible to conceive of putting out content that contradicts YouTube's policy, because all of a sudden you just can't afford to take the hit. Your livelihood goes. So in a way that you never thought you would have had to, as a strong, independent, principled person, you suddenly find yourself being told effectively by the algorithm and by the owners of YouTube and the desires of their advertisers. You get told what you can and can't deal with, and that, I think the thing I can see is that comes as although people like me could think about it early on, and I did, some of these people who I like and respect what they do, it's like it's crept up on them and hit them out of the blue at a late stage in the game, when by that time they're already too dependent on it. By the way, so I was here in the 25-degree, 30-degree heat the other day, and I had a bottle of squash. Actually, it wasn't like this. It was just a plastic bottle, and so I was doing some work, and the two things were on the bench, and I just it was absolutely sweltering, and I was doing something frantically, and I was gasping for a drink, and I grabbed hold of this, and the top was already off, and I just glugged it straight into my mouth, and I swallowed about a third of a full mouthful and spat the rest out. It was absolutely repulsive, and I took myself down. Well, first of all, I kind of spat it everywhere in this place. I thought I was going to be sick, and then the bottle says, "Don't induce vomiting." And I didn't quite understand why, but so I thought, okay, well, what do I do? And I was lining up to do some spraying, and I hadn't even done the spraying, which really bugged me. So, so I wasn't able to finish the spraying. Or actually, stupidly, I thought, right, maybe what I'll do is I'll go down to the doctor's. But I thought, no, I've got to do a bit of spraying first, because I've come up here and I've set everything up, and I haven't yet finished it or done any. So, foolishly, I stayed whilst sort of in and out of the little toilet area here, trying to throw up a bit because it was so revolting. I was so sick. I just, up came this petrolly warm. It was horrible. I can't describe this wet, warm, furry, putrid petrol bleps were coming up, into my mouth, and it was making me retch, and I was sort of retching into the toilet there. Sorry, and it just kept these blips, these well ups of this vile stuff kept coming up, and I just sort of was going backwards and forwards to the toilet, and then I came back out. I thought, damn it, I'm going to get some spray onto this guitar body, and so I carried on, went into the other room, put on the mask, and did a whole spray coat. But I just felt so ill. I thought, no, I'm going to do the smart thing that my wife would be proud of me for doing, and that's going to go down to the doctor's surgery. So I quickly grabbed the spray job that I'd just done, brought it in, hung it up here to dry, just about, I think, shut everything off. I had to rescue. I was just about to leave, and I realised a baby swift, swallow, had got trapped in here in this office, in this workshop. So I had to rescue that, probably stinking of, burping and stink of this foul petrol. Caught this poor little thing, but thankfully it didn't put up a fight, and it allowed me to release it out the window. So I got that saved and taken care of, and then I sort of drove down into town feeling pretty wretched. Went to the doctors, and they were great. They just, I carried the bottle with me, and I just went in and said, look, haven't got an appointment, but I just glugged about a third of a mouthful of this stuff, and I'm feeling a bit ropey. I just want to check out and make sure that I don't have to do anything particular. And they were good. I sat down for about 2 minutes, and the doctor came out, and he got me drinking water to dilute whatever it is I'd swallowed. And I sat there under kind of observation outside his place for about 10-15 minutes. And he checked out the poisons and thingy, Department of Poisons, with the emergency numbers and stuff. And so he said, actually, they say it's not fatal. It's hard. It's not going to do you any long-term damage, but you might upset your stomach. And he was not wrong about that. For about 2 days, I was anyway. But the worst bit was just getting rid of this taste. The whole thing. Once you've swallowed it and it's in your system, it's like it comes through you. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. Anyway, so that was my stupidity. There was a moment where I swigged it, and I was so thirsty I'd guzzled a part of it before I even could stop myself, and my brain was going, this is warm, this is strangely warm and furry tasting. And it reminded me afterwards that when I was a kid, our foster mum used to make us eat spoonfuls of castor oil, or cod liver oil. And any of you who remember cod liver oil and those types of things, you know what I mean when I say that it had that warm, furry, fishy texture. It's something, you know what I mean? I think you do. Anyway, so this was like that sort of, only tasting of petrol, and kind of the tasting as poisonous as petrol tastes for the human body when you actually swallow the damn stuff. Anyway, so that ended my day there and then, on that particular day, and I just thought, right, you're trying a bit too fast, too soon. Go home. Stop. This is not good. You've had your COVID and now you're drinking chemicals. You are not doing yourself any favours. So that slowed me down a bit. But anyway, thankfully, the effects of it. Why is this stuck to there? Thank you. Yeah, the effects of it were not too long lasting, I'm happy to say, and I was able to recover. But it's hard to believe I was, inverted commas, stupid enough to drink something so poisonous. But it just goes to show, when you're not focused on something, we've all gone to pick something up, and we think we're picking up the thing we want, and it turns out we picked the kettle up instead of the coffee cup or something, or weird things like that, and you can't help it. It just happens. Anyway, so I survived that stupidness. But anyway, so going back to the YouTube thing, because every time I put up a video, I had to go through that whole rigmarole. It says, is this made for kids? No. Are there sensitive issues in it? And sometimes I'm thinking to myself, well, I've mentioned the war in Ukraine a few times. Is that considered to be too delicate nowadays? Are we not allowed to talk about that in case somebody's feelings get hurt, or somebody thinks, oh no, that's too one-sided, you're too anti-Russian or Russophobic? And and I know it's, like, of all things, I know it's not, nothing is ever completely simple and black and white. It's obvious that's the case, or nothing in life ever is. But even you can't talk about, you can't make everything bland and kind of shared out. Everybody's equally to blame. There are some times and some things where, even if if you're a country and you've got some concerns, you don't go and massacre people and bomb children and kill civilians to establish your security, or to prove to the world that you feel insecure by somebody else being near to you. These things don't equal up in my book. Anyway, but so it's impossible, really. Any day I expect YouTube to go, I'm sorry, you spent quite a lot of that video talking about the war in Ukraine. See, normally I don't use words like wars in Ukraine, but anyway, and I'm quite sure that they'll say, up until now we've trusted you to categorize your own content, but I'm afraid now we've decided that you're not to be trusted in categorizing your content, because you dealt with some controversial issues and didn't tell us. Therefore, we're now demonetizing your channel and your content and whatever. So it won't surprise me at all for that to happen. So I'm kind of expecting it, and which is sort of ties in with this thing about, I'm glad that I don't depend, or I've deliberately made sure not to depend on ad revenue. And in a way, it's my content is not, as you know, and I have to tell you, but my content is not like that. It's not, nothing about it is tailored to please people and get lots of likes and shares and go virals and all that malarkey. So you can tell from the content that that's not what I'm aiming to do. And the reason I'm not aiming to do it is because I've already basically I set out at the beginning what I wanted my return on the investment of doing videos on YouTube. I decided what I wanted it to be, and that return is not dependent on YouTube liking my content. And it was so that now hang on a second. I'm going to add a stage to this, the 240 stage. I've been thinking that it's a bit short. We're a bit short of stages here. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think I came to the conclusion. I think my crowning file is 150 grit, not the 300 grit I thought it was. So as a result, if that's 150, not 300, I need to go to 240 instead of 400, which used to be my first stage. So now I go 240, then 400. So if the last scratches on here are the crowning file at 150, this is now the next step up at 240, which makes sense, obviously. And as always, I do the first bit by hand, just traditional. I just like doing it that way. There's no simple, obvious reason. It just feels good to me. Anyway, so yeah, I feel sort of sorry for people who, well, I don't feel sorry for some people who've made YouTube their income, because those people, many of those people, or some of those people I should say, are earning six-figure sums from YouTube, and they get to do all these wonderful things and fly around the world and holiday and buy exotic clothes and whatnot. Cars, clothes, goods. Anyway, so you know, they get what they want from it, but I feel sorry for them too, in so far as that they get dependent on that earnings and then discover too late, I think, fatally too late, that they're actually not creatively free at all. And you know, that realization comes when there's no way out. You know, they have to, yeah, they have to play the game YouTube's way, or else they will, you know, they'll lose their income, and that's a serious business. So I'm just glad that I started out deliberately avoiding that strategy, mainly because I knew what it would bring. I suppose I'm long in the tooth enough to understand something about the advertiser relationship in the digital media, I suppose you could call it. It was never going to be creative freedom. So my main market who sees these videos is the people whose guitars I've done. So Google, YouTube doesn't need to promote me for that. I can just send them a link. The next priority group of people I'd like to see my videos are people who've got, for example, a Rally Les Paul and they want to set it up. Now for that I do need search in Google, YouTube, to find this titled video, and hopefully it will continue to do that. However, if I were to find that Google didn't like me, YouTube didn't like me talking about things like Russia and Ukraine, and it decided to not return my videos when somebody's searching for Rally GL300 setup, then I'd have to reconsider. Because while I don't really care about the loss of $120 maximum a month I might earn from YouTube ads. I do care about prospective customers still being able to find this setup when they look for somebody setting up a rally like theirs. So that is important. Thankfully I've got enough reputation, I suppose, now that it wouldn't be the end of the world if YouTube suddenly stopped returning my stuff in video. So I don't think there'll be, well, the reason why it is likely that they reduce your findability is because they don't want ad-free content reaching the top, basically. That's the hard truth of it. They're in it to make that money, so if they have a choice, they're going to put relevant stuff that is ad friendly, and that's why Jake's videos were disappearing from the results because of the the inappropriate content or whatever, ad unfriendly content. So I think the point is, anyway, with the stuff that I do, apart from just a bit of emptying my brain about what I'm thinking about in terms of general stuff about Ukraine and things, unless I don't, the saving grace is that my videos aren't just about that. If they were just about that, I could expect to be shut down by YouTube, and then I would lose my revenue and so on and so forth. So, or I'd lose not only revenue but visibility. So I guess the rule is give up making content about controversial things specifically if you depend on the revenue. That's my first bit of advice. Don't start a channel that deals with controversial issues and hope to and build a dependency on the money that you might for a while get from it. Don't do it, because YouTube will cut you down to size at some point. And once it's decided you're not good for ads, then it will disappear you because you aren't making it money. Your content isn't capable of making it good money. So that's the harsh reality. Truth is, I'd be miffed if I can't say the things I want to say on video while I'm just chundering away. However, if the choice came to gagging myself and carrying on doing setups but never talking about the state of the world, then I would carry on doing the setups and just shut up, because I didn't set out as my number one priority was to blether on about world affairs. And I guess YouTube is just not the place to do it if you want to be found. Someone like Russell Brand is probably demonetized, I would imagine, but he's built his social media kind of pyramid in such a way that it doesn't depend. He's got such a large subscriber base that he's got access to all the people he needs within that. He's not dependent on being found by new people. I mean, he does get found and he finds ways to promote it, but probably least of all will be through the YouTube recommendations or YouTube search results. Anyway, who knows? But I think there are ways to do it, but and I think Russell Brand is an example of one of the ways to do it. But the one way not to do it is to mix a controversial subject with a need to pay your mortgage. And I think that some of these guys I've been looking at fall into that trap, because what happens, I think, is that their channels tick along for a while prior to a kind of big explosion, and then what happens is, because they're doing okay, and then they find a controversial subject to talk about, which suddenly skyrockets and gets them millions of subscribers, and their ad revenue suddenly goes up massively, and then they can afford to give up their day job and so on and so forth. And as soon as they do that, if they do that without understanding the essential insecurity of it, the essential flakiness of it, then that's where they would be in trouble. And I think some people do, because the money just, I have to say, the money just is so good to begin with, you know, or it's for many people, 6-figure YouTube income for making videos can just seem like kind of nirvana of some kind. But it backfires if you're not in charge of, or if you don't control your visibility from one day to the next. If talking about something that you thought your audience really wants, because maybe that's why they're all following you, but then YouTube decides that you and your audience don't really help its advertising plan, then it'll kind of frustrate you. And for your audience, they'll just be a bit pissed off, and they'll see you maybe disappear, or your content maybe cut back or whatever. And they'll be a bit miffed, but they'll go on and either find you somewhere else, or they'll go to someone else who says something similar to you or whatever. But for you, it'll be shutting up your business, going bankrupt, giving up, you know, your mortgage, whatever. It's a massive cost when YouTube decides that your content is too risky for its advertisers. Anyway, so I don't always make, or maybe, no, that's not true, I do make pretty good decisions, and one of them that I will pride myself on having made early on is avoiding any dependency on YouTube ad revenue for our livelihood, because that way lies madness and ruin, and I was kind of aware of that early on. Right, so with all of that sort of done, we are now in a position to fit the nut. Well, I'll just pop it there for now. The next part of this game will be to reinstall or install the new bits and pieces. So I have to make sure I've got everything I need. 2 pickups, 4 knobs, 4 pots, 2 strap buttons, a new quality jack, plate over there for the jack. We need some wiring through the tunnels. We need a 3-way switch, which I have to find. That might be one more thing I have to buy, but I may have one. I seem to have acquired a bunch of long ones and flat ones for SGs and things. Well, there's one that should do the job, but it's minus the important bit, which is it's minus the thing, that dewy up bit. So somehow I've got, this is switchcraft, that will be the wrong size. This one is something else, but that will probably be the wrong size. So this Chinese made one, there isn't a single thing that fits that. Right, so we're going to have to buy another one of these, which means parking this for another day or two. Unless I can dig through some other of my supply departments to find I mean, I don't trust these second-hand old ones. I don't want to use an old one. What I'll do is I'll go through my various other supply departments, and failing that, I'll order one tonight, and then we'll be ready to go. But the hard fret work is done. Three-way. I just need a couple of these. Three-way toggle. Three-way toggle times 2, please. Okay, I think that will be it for tonight. I'm going to hang this up, put all the bits into the box that I've got especially for it. Oh, missed those. I've found some more anyway, so that's okay. Pickups, cover plates, those, these, and those. Okay. Sit down there. All right, that'll be it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and we shall come back to finish it tomorrow, I think. Thanks for watching. See you a bit.